Well, hello and welcome to this special mini episode of Gary Knits, Gary Rides. It's not going to be a regular episode. What I wanted to do was to come on and talk a bit about Destash for Good. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about the winter 2026 round of Destash for Good. So hopefully this will be a bit of an evergreen video for anyone who has never participated in one of my charity yarn adjacent auctions. So hopefully not much changes if there are future editions of this, and you can go back and watch this or watch it for the first time if you are new to the whole process. But I've never really done this, and things have changed a lot since we first started this project. I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. So I just thought it would be maybe helpful for first-time participants to just have a little walkthrough of what to expect during the auction, give a little bit of the history of how we got here and just how the whole thing works in general, because there's been a lot of new folks showing up over on Instagram at the Destash4Good account in the last couple of weeks in the lead up to this auction. So I thought it might be helpful. Hopefully it is. And if you have any questions, just shoot me a line, drop them in the comments, and I will try to answer them as best I can. So, a bit about the backstory on Destash for Good for longtime viewers of my channel. And if this is the first thing you are seeing on my channel, welcome. And I hope that you will subscribe and watch some of the past episodes and stay up to date with what I'm working on. But for those of you who are new and who have not been through one of these, I thought it might be helpful to give a little background. So, for the past 7 or 8 years or so, I have been actively involved in raising money for a couple of different charities related to HIV/AIDS treatment and prevention. There was a bicycle ride that ran for 30 years from San Francisco to Los Angeles that was called California AIDS Ride originally, and then AIDS Life Cycle for the last 20 or so years. And for 6 years, I participated as a cyclist and a fundraiser. I had set myself a goal to do the ride 10 times or until I raised $200,000. In my final year of riding, I crossed over that goal and ended up raising about $225,000 in total for the two charities, which are the San Francisco AIDS Foundation and the Los Angeles LGBT Center. That final year of my riding, I had an accident, broke my elbow, wasn't able to finish the ride out that year, but hit my goal in terms of fundraising, so that was fine. Subsequently, they had one more year of the ride, and then for a bunch of different reasons, decided to end the ride after 30 years. It just got very expensive to run. Ridership was down, and so it was less and less money was being raised for the organizations because the cost of putting the thing on didn't continue to go up. And if you don't hit a certain number of riders every year, it just really cuts into the fundraising. So after 30 years, they decided not to do the ride as it was anymore, but they had some thoughts about what they were going to do going forward. This year, they have launched two new rides. So the San Francisco AIDS Foundation up in Northern California is doing a 3-day ride, and the Los Angeles LGBT Center is doing a ride down here in Southern California. Again, a 3-day ride, starting small, and they're hoping to build it kind of like they did with the original ride. But because of the way they're running it and because it's a shorter ride, they're hoping to attract more riders. This is a little bit of the background on kind of how we got here. I had raised money through friends and family for several years. Then I had the idea I had gotten more involved in the knitting and crocheting world and came up with the idea to do knit-alongs and crochet-alongs as fundraisers. And we did that for a couple of years. And I was like, how can we continue to do something new and fun and raise more money? And I had this idea of kind of like a garage sale for yarn. One of the other organizations I was involved with here locally, we had done like a big multifamily garage sale one year to do fundraising for political campaigns, and it was a huge success. Just in a day, we raised a ton of money, and I was like, yeah, that's a great idea, and people love to shop for yarn. Everyone that I know has a little bit too much yarn, or has yarn that they bought that they, had an idea for, or that maybe that didn't pan out, or taste change, whatever. Wouldn't it be cool to kind of do a yarn garage sale? And so that's where the idea of Destash4Good came from. I basically allowed folks to list their yarn. So they sent me, a description of what they had and sent photos, and I did all the work in the background and put the yarn up for auction. Originally, it was run on Instagram, which worked well when it was small, and we'd run the auction for a couple of weeks, and then I would pair up whoever was the winner of the auction and the seller, and they would do all of the shipping and get the yarn to everyone. It worked very well on Instagram up until a point when it got to be so big that the amount of posting that I was doing to list the things for each auction, for whatever reason, kind of triggered Instagram. They would shut down my account for a couple of days. I'd try to get it back, and this was, even after having paid to be like a verified user. And it just, as things went on, and quite frankly, after Meta got involved in Instagram, everything on Instagram has kind of gone to hell. But it just wasn't working, and so I found another an auction website, a site that is designed to do charity auctions, basically, and started running it over there. At about the same time, my original career was in retail, and we had this thing in retail called sell-off, which was after the season was done, and I worked in the merchandising offices. We'd have excess inventory, and we would get Filene's Basement or TJ Maxx or whoever it was at the time to come through, and we would give them a list of what we had, and they'd say, okay, we will give you 20 cents on the dollar for all of your belts, or 50 cents on the dollar for all of your sweaters. And I thought, I bet a bunch of my indie dyer friends have a similar situation. After their year is up, they've got bases that they don't carry anymore, or a particular color that didn't really sell that well, or a exclusive color that they dyed for a particular yarn show that they don't want to put up on their website, or they have dye mistakes, or they have, one-of-a-kind skeins, whatever it is. And it's just sitting there in their inventory, essentially taking up space, taking up money that they can't use to go out and buy more base and more dye and dye more yarn that they want to dye. So I reached out to a bunch of dyers, and this is probably a year or two. I think I've done this twice now that way, and said, listen, here's my pitch is you have this excess inventory that is taking up space and dollars tied up in yarn that isn't moving. I'm trying to raise some money for these charities. If you will sell it to me at some sort of discount, and I kind of let them figure out what works. I tell them that the lower the price, the more is going to go to charity, because I donate 100% of my sales price to charity. And I'll take it all off your hands, and rather than you have to do mystery bags or whatever, where you still have to ship it and you still have to pack it up and da-da-da, I'll take it all in one fell swoop, get it off your hands, and then I will redistribute it through this auction process that I've set up. And it worked amazingly well. We got, a huge response, more than I could take. Essentially, the way it works from my end is, as I was doing this, I kind of had in my mind how much I was willing to donate each year to these organizations. And basically that's the amount that I said, okay, I have this much money to spend on yarn from dyers. And once that's done, it's done. And so I would, see what they had to offer, and I would try to budget out where I could get, the most bang for my buck, have a mix of, weights and a mix of different dyers and things like that. And then that was, I don't reimburse myself for that money. That's sort of my donation to the charity, and then I take whatever I sell it for and give the 100% of that to the charities. So that worked incredibly well. I still let other people list their yarn, so it was kind of a mix of stuff that was like from my own stash and from dyers and from individuals, and that's how we've been running things for the last couple of years. It's a lot of work on the back end because I have to take photographs of all that yarn and go through skein by skein, and because it's a mix that comes from the dyers, it's a bunch of different bases, a bunch of different colors. Some are one of a kinds, and we're going to talk about what that means here in a little bit. But that's kind of how it got started, and I got reached out to this year by the people that are running the new ride for the Los Angeles LGBT Center, and they said, I said, I don't think I can ride this year. I'd like to do it again in the future, especially since it's a shorter ride, but I'd be happy to do whatever I can to spread the word, raise some money, mentor riders and fundraisers, whatever you need me to do. And I said, and I think I could probably kick things off by raising some money through one of these Destash4Good auctions. So that's where we are. So a little bit about this auction. As I mentioned, it is going to be a fundraiser for the Los Angeles LGBT Center, specifically the Community Engagement Fund for Center Ride Out, which is the name of the new ride. So the Community Engagement Fund is basically like a scholarship fund. So for first-time riders who may never have had to fundraise before, if they show that they're making, the effort, and they've raised an X amount of money towards their goal. I think they each have to raise about $2,500 to participate. This fund exists to then kind of get them over the line, to try to get as many riders, especially first-time riders, able to participate, because as anyone who's done one of the AIDS life cycles will tell you, the experience is life-changing, and once you've done it once, it is something that you want to continue to do. And so it's really helping to get those first-time riders over that hurdle, and it'll let them to experience the ride, because then they're the best ambassadors to bringing new riders on board. So the money is going to go to the LGBT Center of Los Angeles. If you're not familiar, it is the largest LGBTQ organization in the world. They have 800 employees. They have 10 locations around the Los Angeles area, including a gigantic campus in West Hollywood. They are a holistic service provider to the community. So they provide wraparound services for everyone, but they particularly are targeting youth and seniors. I think we're probably two of their biggest client groups at their campus, and then in a couple other locations. They have housing, so they house about 200 people. I think it's about half youth and half seniors, but again, it's a wraparound service provider. So not only do they get housing, they get food, they get education, they get legal services, they get healthcare services as part of the services that the center provides to them. So it's a huge organization. Should come as no surprise to anyone that given the extremists who have taken over our government and what they are prioritizing and what they are cutting, that funding from the federal level for services that are provided to LGBTQ plus people have been cut, if not completely, dramatically. And so the center has really had a tough year. And in addition, having stopped the AIDS life cycle, which was a major fundraiser for them, and trying to replace it with something brand new that they're starting from scratch, it's going to be a tough year, and they're going to have to make some difficult choices. So I'm thrilled that I'm able to do my little part to try to help stopgap some of the cuts that have come their way, and to continue some of these life-saving services. So we are going to do an auction. It is going to run from the 1st of February 2026 until the 13th of February. So starting at 8 a.m. Pacific time on the 1st, ending at 8 p.m. Pacific time on the 13th. There are 648 listings, and that covers, well, we'll talk about how it's organized here in a second. $27,000 worth of merchandise at retail. My goal is to raise $10,000 for the center through this. I think we could do a little bit more based on historical averages in terms of what I typically know things are going to sell for relative to their retail price. At the same time, this is the biggest auction we've ever done. I don't know if that will dilute the kind of per item amounts. Also, thanks to our friends in Washington, the economy is not nearly where it was a year ago. So I think everyone is struggling a bit more, if not a lot more, in the current environment. So I just don't know what the appetite for yarn and things are going to be. So hopefully, the fact that people are going to be able to get things at a discount to the retail price will increase people's appetite. But I'm keeping my target at $10,000, and hopefully we'll blow through it. But if I can raise that much, I'll be thrilled. So again, I talked about a little bit where the yarn comes from. This auction is no different. It's a mix of some stuff for my stash. I went through again, as I do every year, and kind of pulled out things that I'm like, I'm not going to work on this project. Why did I buy this yarn? Or that's a really cute single skein of yarn, but what am I going to do with it? Listings from other people, third parties, and then yarn that I got directly from dyers, either through donations or through purchases. Again, my donation to this whole project and things that I was able to get directly from dyers. So it's a mix. I think it's a great mix. We have things from every weight. Lots of different indie dyers represented. So I think it's a really nice mix. I'm going to talk a little bit about how things are organized in the auction software. So I use a platform called 32 Auctions. Very soon, if not simultaneous with the release of this video, I will be posting on Instagram at the Destash4Good account, also on my GaryKnitsAndRides account, and also over on Bluesky as Gary Knits, as just Gary Knits. And I also posted up in Ravelry a link to the auction. It won't be open yet until the 1st, but the link will let you scroll through and do some pre-shopping and see what everything is available, get a little bit of the lay of the land, and just see how things are organized. But I thought what it might be helpful to do now is just to do a little screen sharing video walkthrough of how things are organized, what you can find in each listing in terms of information, talk a little bit about this one-of-a-kind colorway situation, and then I'll come back, talk a little bit about bidding and how the auction progresses and what happens at the end. So here is a quick little walkthrough of what you will see when you get the link to the auction. This works out well. So this is pretty much what you will see when you first go to the auction. You won't have all this admin controls and all that stuff, but this is basically it. Please, please, please read through all of this information. I'm going to cover most of it, but it is very important, especially when you are talking about shipping and things like that, to really understand what is going on. But here's about the auction, a little bit about the history of what we're doing here and who we're raising money for. And here's the information on the start and end time. And then in terms of the way that things are organized, I organized everything into two big categories: yarn, which also includes fiber, and then other, which is basically notions and bags of books and things like that. Up here, you can use this drop down menu and you can look at things by category and then by subcategory. So within the yarn and fiber, things are then classified based on their weight. And then within other, it's by the type of item. So notions or needles or books or whatever. So here is where you can look at things by particular category. So if you click on project bags and you click on that, it is going to bring you right to the project bag pages. So different items and different weights are all also categorized by item numbers. So in this case, we're looking at project bags, and that starts at 900 and goes through however many project bags we have. And you can, likewise sort by weight of yarn. So go to worsted. Here is the worsted weights of yarn. So that is basically how things are generally organized. We'll go back to, we'll just go back home. And then in terms of information that you find in each of the listings. So if we just go to view all items and we will just pick this Knitpicks Gloss Lace number 005. When you click on the listing, it brings up the item name number, a brief description of what it is, Knitpicks Gloss Lace Hawk, the retail value of the whole thing. So that is not per skein, that is the total retail value of whatever the listing item is. The starting bid, again, I said, or I will mention that, most things start at $1, but that is set by the seller. In this case, it is not me. And this one is an error because it should be minimum bid increment is $1, not $9. So let me find another, let me go to the next item. So this lollipop yarn, again, retail value $28, starting bid $1, minimum bid increment $1. I will go back and double check and fix that last item because it probably is a $9 start and a $1 increment because everything should have a $1 minimum bid increment. And then the other thing to mention here is this little heart that says watch. So you can click on that, and basically, if there's something that you want to tag as something that you're tracking, you can click that there, and then it will populate this watch list up here, and you can just keep track of the things, either things you're bidding on or things you would like to bid on. Then you scroll down, you get the item description. This again is pretty standardized. Again, the individual sellers provide this information to me. I try to augment it where I can in terms of finding yardages and things like that if they didn't provide it. One of the rules I have for listing is that everything has to have a tag on it in terms of fiber content and uh, yardage per skein, etc. So most of that information is in here, but it tells you the weight, what the fiber content is, the color way, yardage, often yardage per 100 grams or per 50 grams, depending what the thing is, how many skeins are in the lot. That should usually always match with the picture. If you see one that doesn't, let me know, because I've tried to be pretty careful with that. Who is listing it? So this is AFD Knits has listed this. And then down here, it has the information on the shipping. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the shipping and the sort of vagaries of shipping between things that are offered by third parties and things that are offered by me a little bit later. But all of that is not so briefly summarized down here. But if you scroll down all the way to the end where it says shipping options, this is for this particular item what the shipping options are. Canada, only if it's listed by me. So again, this one is not listed by me, so it does not apply. And then the US for this particular item will cost $8 to ship. And because it's listed by a third party, as I will explain in a bit, it is also going to cost $8 to ship it for with another item because we do not combine shipping for third party sales. So that is basically all of the information I think that is here. Here is the button that I will reference a couple times that if you need to reach out to me, that will shoot me an email. But I think that that is basically it on the information. As the bidding happens, it will show up here what the current bid is, what the current high bid is, and when the auction gets turned on, this is where you will click to bid. You will set your bidding. I talk about proxy bidding here in a little bit and what that means, but it basically allows you to set your maximum bid. One of the last things that I wanted to talk about before I go back to the regular video is just this thing about the one of a kind and dye lots, and some of the things that I get from indie dyers are one of a kinds and dye mistakes, and oftentimes the label does not have any color information on it, so it's it's sometimes hard to tell. I get several skeins that kind of look like the same color, but because they're not labeled as the same color, I don't feel like I can list them together as the same color. There's a note here on the front page about this. Basically, I will generally list these skeins individually if I'm not 100% sure that they're the same yarn, the same color. So I've come up with a couple of different conventions to how to sort of let you know what is what in terms of those. So if, and here's a good example of this. Let me go to number 600. I think that's DK. Sometimes I see things and I'm like, this is similar, but definitely not what I would consider to be in the same dial. You're getting a little sneak preview of the whole DK thing here, but so let me find 600 is the one. Here we go. So 601. So you'll see here 601, 602, 603. All of these are, in the picture, it looks pretty close, but when I had them all next to each other, I would not use these in the same project as the same color. They looked different enough to me that I wouldn't feel comfortably selling them as the same dialog. So I've labeled them OOK, one of a kind, cyan A, cyan B, cyan 3, cyan C. So those are just letters. If we scroll down here to these emeralds and also these dark mauve tonals, you'll see that this says one of a kind emerald 1A, 1B, 1C. These, again, the colors aren't labeled. They were just uh, don't have a color on them. But when I put them together, I would use these in the same project as the same color. So if it's a letter and a number, that generally means that or that does mean that I think they're close enough to use in the same project as the same color, but because I can't be 100% sure that they came from the same dye lot, et cetera, et cetera, I'm listing them separately, but I just wanted to kind of let you know that if you needed 5 skeins of emerald green yarn, I think that these are the same, basically the same color, and I would feel confident putting them in the same project. There, again, same thing happens here. I think if you bring this one up, this is 2A, 2B, 2C. So those three, to my eye, look to be the same, the same color. And there are a couple of ones in there where um, things were even labeled as the same color, and they were noticeably different dialects. So I think it was 5 skeins, and 3 of them were definitely a little bit darker than the other ones. So I've separated those as well, and you'll see them, as a skein of 2, a set of 2 that I've labeled X, so and so A, and then the other one is so and so B, and it's the other three skeins. And I've tried to make a note. Also, you will see in sometimes in this additional information line here, I will make a note saying like, oh, you know this is noticeably lighter than the other lot of this same named color. The other thing that I did in a couple of cases is where I had 8 skeins or more of the same yarn in the same colorway. And while yes, I know that there are, depending on the sizing, 8 skeins of fingering weight yarn may be the amount that you need for a particular size. It seemed like typically sort of the widest range of sizes probably didn't need quite that many. So I would split those into 2 lots. And you will see that a couple places. I've noted in those that I'm like, this is the exact same color as the other lot of 4 of this color. So if you, and I think in both of those cases, I also made those buy now prices so that, if you definitely wanted those all 8 skeins, and you wanted to buy them at the buy now price, you could get them. So again, some of the nuances in just sort of how I've set things up because of the way that I get things from some of the dyers. I think that is it on the walkthrough. Again, hit me up, contact us if you have any questions, and I will take you back to the regular video. Thanks. Bye. Okay, so I hopefully that gives you a little bit of a preview of what to expect if you haven't been through one of these, what things are going to look like, kind of where you can find different information, et cetera, et cetera. Again, if there's any questions at any point, ask before you bid. That would be my number one thing, because each bid is final, and so you are committing to pay for the yarn if you bid on it. I will try to be as responsive as I can. I think there's a link. Yeah, there is a link in there on ask a question, and I will try to be as quick to respond as I possibly can. But let's talk a little bit about how the bidding goes. So bidding will start again 8 a.m. on the 1st of February. Almost everything, I would say it's probably 95% of the items start at $1 per skein or $1 per item in most cases. And bidding is done in increments of $1, so there's no 0.5 or 0.75 or any of that stuff. So all in increments of $1. Pricing, where there are higher starting prices, those are set by the sellers. So for the most part, I think my stuff generally is at $1. I rarely put in a higher bid unless it's something unique, high price, or there's something special about the thing. But most of them start at $1. Occasionally you will see a buy now price. So this is set by the sellers. They can choose to put this in if they want to or not. That is a price where you can stop the auction. So you can basically bid below the buy now price, but as soon as someone bids the buy now price, that item closes. I think, if memory serves me, that if you bid something at the buy now price, it automatically triggers an invoice to be sent to you, saying, telling you that you won and you can pay. Your choice, 100%. It's probably a little bit easier if you're bidding on other things to wait, because you're going to get an invoice, a total invoice at the end of the auction. So to pay it all at once, but if you want to, pay as soon as you get it, that's totally fine too. I will be able to keep track of it. The bidding uses a system called proxy bidding. So if you're familiar with eBay, it's a similar bidding situation. So rather than have to constantly go back and increase your bid, if someone's bidding against you, you basically can bid upfront whatever the highest price you are willing to pay, and it will increase your bid in increments of $1 as long as someone's bidding against you, until one of you, either it hits your maximum bid or people stop bidding against you. So you can do that. I think it will send you, or you can set it up to send you a notification when you've been outbid. And I don't think it sends it interimly. I think it's only once if you've put in, if you put in your maximum bid, it's only when someone has exceeded that. So you can have that set up. You'll also see, I think on every single thing, it says this item, it may be eligible for extended bidding. What that means is, in the last 3 minutes of the auction, again, if you're a long-term veteran eBayer, I don't know if it happens as much anymore, but back in the early days of eBay, you would have you'd have people who would wait till the very last second and then try to put in a higher bid. And so the way that extended bidding works is, if within the last 3 minutes before the auction ends, someone bids and bids the price up, it will extend the bidding on that item for another 3 minutes until the bidding stops, or so gives people a chance to respond to those bids, and it will do that for up to 30 minutes. So it hopefully prevents some of this, what they call auction sniping, where at the last minute someone comes in to try to outbid folks. So you have a little bit of leeway on the ending of the auction if there's some last minute bidding going on. If you have any questions, let me know. In terms of kind of what happens, we should talk about shipping. I showed you in the walkthrough where the shipping information is. Each item should have the relevant shipping information. There's also a description of the shipping information, which may be a little bit of overkill, but I just wanted to be very clear about how the shipping is calculated. So there's a difference between the pricing that I charge for shipping for things that are listed by other people and things that are listed by me. And that is simply because I kind of have to assume, based on averages, what the shipping is going to be for other people. I can't wait until the end of the auction to find out who wins, have the person then figure out what the shipping is, then let me know what the shipping is, then let you know what the shipping is, and then you pay. It's too much of a headache. So I kind of have to use averages. Basically, I looked at the price to ship something from the East Coast to the West Coast, East Coast, West Coast to Midwest, and kind of in between, and kind of then came up with an average at the full retail of U.S. Postal Service. Shipping has gone up, so shipping is expensive at the full retail price, which is what I assume that most folks who are selling their or shipping their yarn are going to have to be paying, because unless they have a business, they're probably not going to be able to access the lower rates that the Postal Service offers, and so that's where those rates came from. So I think it starts, for a single skein of yarn, it's like $8. Now it's that first skein is the most expensive one, and then each successive one is cheaper. Which brings up the second point, which is, unfortunately, because of the headache, and I can't, it's just too much work with, 40, 50 different sellers, they can't provide combined shipping. So each item is going to price as if it's being shipped alone. And I have not come up with any sort of easy way to get around that, unless I just have everyone ship everything to me, and then I do all the shipping, which is also another kind of a headache. So unfortunately, that means that the shipping, you're going to be if you're buying things from a third party seller, if you buy 2 or 3 things from the same seller, you're not going to be able to get combined shipping. For things that are sold by me, so things that are listed, as you saw in the thing that it says who is listing it. So anything that's listed by me will be able to have combined shipping. That should be reflected in the shipping price that you see in that item. So it should say something like, typically for a single skein, it's $5.50 or so to ship that. And if it's shipping with another item, that only costs you another 75 cents. So if you had 2 items, it's going to be $6.25 instead of whatever the wouldn't be $11 in how it would be if you were buying it from a third party. Hope this isn't confusing, but basically I can combine shipping. Third party sellers cannot combine shipping. Again, working on averages here, and especially if someone buys a lot of yarn, the amount of shipping that you're going to be charged up front is going to be probably more. This is if you're buying from me, is going to be probably more than what it's actually going to cost me to ship. What I do in those situations is, if it is more than 50 cents, 75%, something like that, I will then reimburse you back whatever the difference is. And I'll let you know. I'll say, hey, I was able to save you $5 on the shipping because you bought 20 skeins of yarn, and the way that it calculated in the system, it overcharged you for shipping based on what it's actually going to cost. Because as you get more and more yarn, the incremental amount to ship that next couple skeins of yarn is very, very low. So I will do that. I will go through and I will reimburse you for the shipping. But again, we can't do combined shipping for a third-party seller. So just be aware of that before you bid, because the buyer pays for all of the shipping. I think that is it. Everything is U.S. only, unless I'm the seller. I will ship to Canada. I will say up front, it is ridiculously expensive to ship to Canada. It's like $17 or something to ship a single skein of yarn. Now incrementally, the more you buy it, it's not that same amount, but it's still crazy expensive to ship to Canada. And unfortunately, I can't ship internationally because I can't factor into the system like every possible charge that could happen from all the different countries, especially now with the crazy tariffs and all that. So I think that's it on the shipping. So the way that things happen at the end of the auction, and again, patience please, because as automated as this 32 auctions is, there's still a little bit of manual work that happens. What you will get, I think, almost instantly is an invoice, and you will, based on everything that you won, you will get an invoice, and it will show you all the items, and it will give you a link to pay. It's all done through PayPal, so you can use your credit card through PayPal. Once you have paid, then I go through your invoice and say, okay, these are the items that they bought from these different sellers. I let those sellers know. I pay them. I pay them for the amount less their donation of what the thing sold for, plus the shipping costs. And then it is up to them to pack and ship your items. I have asked this time, based on the request from buyers from the last time, to encourage all of the sellers to provide tracking info both to the buyer and to me. So your email information will go to the sellers so that they can send you the tracking info. Just so we've had very little problems in the past, but we did have last time U.S. Postal Service issue where a package got lost, but because the tracking info was not held on to and shared, we had no way to sort of track it down. So hopefully that'll solve this issue. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we don't have any of those sorts of issues, but at least we'll have the tracking info and we can go through the proper channels to get that rectified if something does go wrong. So I get paid from you. I then pay the sellers for the shipping and the thing, and they take care of all of the shipping directly to you. After I've dealt with the third-party sellers, then I go through each particular invoice and I start pulling and packing your orders from me. Get it labeled, get it weighed, get it labeled. If there is a difference in what you were charged for shipping versus what it costs me to ship, then I will send that back to you, and I will also then send you a screenshot or some way for you to get the tracking info for anything that I send you, and then we are done. So a little bit of patience. It's 648 listings. I'm dealing with 40 or maybe 30-40 other sellers that I'm trying to get them taken care of before I start dealing with the stuff that I am shipping out. Hi there. One thing I forgot to mention when talking about when the auction closes, and I said you will get an invoice. Please pay that invoice as quickly as possible. So after a day or so, I will send you a reminder. But within, let's say 48 hours after that reminder gets sent out, if you haven't paid or at least reached out to me and say, oh, I'm in the hospital, something's happened, I am going to go ahead and move on to the next bidder and make them the winner of that auction. So as soon as you get the invoices, please pay. If there are any issues at that point, just let me know. Thanks so much. Bye. Anything else? I think that is basically the nuts and bolts of how the Destash4Good works. Oh, I wanted to talk a little bit. No, I did that in before, talking about the one-of-a-kind colors. Sorry. But I think that's it. If there are any questions, again, you can reach out to me in the comments section here. All of my info is listed in the show notes in terms of getting in contact with me. There's also a button in the auction once that goes live where you can reach out to me there, or you can DM me on Instagram if that's how you found me. So again, thank you so much for participating in this round of Destash4Good. If you are a seller or one of the indie dyers that provided me with yarn to sell, thank you so much. It really is a community effort, and every time I do one of these things, and each one has gotten a little bit bigger, I'm always blown away by how this community comes together to support great causes. And so I'm eternally grateful for everyone who's both a seller, a buyer, a provider of yarn from that I can purchase at a big discount to then resell to you all. Happy bidding, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye.